Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. If you want to farm for the next 20, 30, or 40 years, wouldn't it make sense to build up your soils now and a little bit each year along the way so you have great productive soils all through your farming career? Well, of course it would. That's why we're going to talk about building up your soils in today's show.
Well, when you talk about farming 20, 30, 40 years from now, chances are you're going to have a good relationship with a banker. We're going to talk about that just a little bit today.
Well, we've also got a difficult to control weed of the week, and of course, we'll show you how to eliminate that on your farm. But first, here's today's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
How much is the value of an ear of corn? For farmers, they see thousands of ears of corn, and sometimes they just don't put much value on an ear of corn. Like Brian, for example. A few harvests ago, we had 200 grade school kids come out to our farm at harvest time. They wanted to see the big equipment. They wanted to see the fields and learn about what was going on and how crop production worked. And Brian was feeling pretty generous that day, and one of the kids had asked, can I have an ear of corn? And Brian's like, sure, yeah, you all can have an ear of corn. So all the kids got an ear of corn out of our field. And you think, I wonder if that was going to cost us a lot of money. And everybody was happy about this except for me, thinking about the money that we were going to lose out of the field. Man, this is going to really cost us. And the teachers, and of course the janitors. Now I say the janitors because the kids, as they brought these ears of corn back onto the buses, through the hallways at school, they're popping kernels off there. There are kernels of corn everywhere. The teacher said, guys, it was a great experience, and thanks for being so generous to give an ear of corn to each one of these kids. They really appreciate it. But just next time, give the ears of corn to us, not to the kids, so we can hand it to them as they go home rather than as they get on our buses and travel through our schools.
Okay, but here was the thing that day, and what I was trying to impress upon these little kids was just the value of one ear of corn is almost nothing. So let me just give you a quick example. Let's say that a farmer raises 200 bushels of corn per acre, and that's worth $3.50 a bushel. Okay, that's $700 per acre then. Well, if the farmer had harvested 35,000 plants on a per acre basis, that means that each ear of corn that he's got out there, assuming each plant has one ear, each ear of corn is only worth 2 cents. Okay, so even if you got 50% more, that's only 3 cents an ear. And I remember back when corn was $2, we would talk a lot about how corn was worth a penny per ear. Well, yeah, now it's worth 2 pennies per ear. So I always tell people, when you're farming, we're basically just picking up pennies all the time as we're going along through harvest. We have to pick up an awful lot of pennies to make anything pay.
So 200 kids times 2 cents a piece, that's $4, Brian. I think you owe me a couple of bucks
right.
For your generosity.
Right, so it's almost nothing. And I just asked the kids, what do you think an ear of corn is worth? And a lot of kids, $1, $5, $10. I go, nope, it's worth 2 cents. That's it. So it's not much. And that's the whole thing when we start talking about in society as a whole, oh, these farmers are doing pretty well and the farm economy is good. Well, you know what? The farmer has to do an awful lot of work, because just think about you. If there were a whole bunch of pennies laid down on the street, would you even stop to pick them up? But in effect, that's what the farmer is doing when he's out there harvesting.
But the farmer still has to protect all those pennies all through the year. He has to protect against insects and diseases, and also against weeds like our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?
What's next in weed control technology? Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans, an advanced soybean product with tolerance to dicamba and glyphosate. Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans. Extend your control.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
You expect a lot from this seed. And as it grows through each stage of development, Agroculture Liquid Fertilizers is there, feeding your crop exactly what it needs when it needs it. So no matter how you fertilize, no matter when, AgroLiquid efficiently brings all the nutrients your crop needs for a great harvest. From 1 kernel in the ground to 600 on the ear. For better yields and better quality, Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers.
Capello corn headers are designed for producers who expect more. Expect more grain in your bin. Expect an industry-leading 2-year manufacturer's warranty. Expect Capello-designed chopping and folding options that save you time and money. And whether red, green, or yellow, expect row size options that fit your operation because all producers deserve the best. Expect Capello. It's a head above the rest.
Honey Wagon? Can the sweet talk. Out here we treat manure, and when we talk treats, we don't mean cupcakes. Treating manure with More Than Manure Nutrient Manager can reduce solids in your pit or lagoon and ammonia levels in confinement buildings. PU, try N and P. MTM is the first and only nutrient manager proven to reduce nitrogen loss and phosphorus lockup. That's fertilizer loaded with yield potential. Looking for proof? Check the bin. Isn't that sweet? Results you can't ignore. A pit you finally can.
A proven herbicide for decades, dicamba can provide burn-down residual control of tough and resistant weeds for up to 14 days. That's another reason why farmers will use dicamba for years to come. Brought to you by Roundup Ready Plus Weed Management Solutions.
One of the most difficult conversations that farmers have to have each year, unfortunately, is with a banker. And I guess we wanted to talk about that just a little bit today because what I always tell guys is when you go in to discuss things with the banker, don't be talking farmer language. You've got to now speak banker language, which is quite different than what the farmer often thinks about.
Well, it's amazing. You know, when we think about that and you're talking to your banker or thinking about your discussion with your banker that you're going to have, we're all excited as farmers about, man, I want to do this, I want to change this practice, I want to use this new product or new technique, and you know, yeah, it's going to cost a little bit of money, but man, I think I'm going to get some more yield out of this, or my corn is going to stand better, or my leaves are going to stay cleaner, and that's going to help me do more photosynthesis, and that's got to be good for crop production. You know, plant health is so important. But you talk about all these things to the banker, and chances are your banker probably didn't grow up on a farm. Now, some certainly have, but your banker may not have, and a lot of this farmer talk is just going to go right over his head. And what the banker is thinking about is, well, okay, so you want to spend more money. Basically, you want to invest more on your farm. What kind of return are you going to get on that investment?
Right, and so mainly what we're talking about here today, we want you going into the banker, number one, with confidence, because right now in our entire U.S. economy, oil is good and ag is good and everything else stinks, as a general statement. Okay, so bankers want to loan money to farmers. That's how they make money, is loaning more money out in things that have good returns on investment. Basically, they want to loan money to people that are going to pay them back. So if you've improved your balance sheet in the last few years, you've got a good potential going into next year. That's great. So go in with a lot of confidence. The next thing is just make sure you're prepared. Prepare to have not only the ag conversation, but also this economic conversation. What we're talking about, what Darren was getting at here, is go in with some of these new things that you want to do, and it's not about spending money. It's not about how much you spend. It's about what each thing is going to return you on the farm. So if it's buying a new tractor, it's the savings on fuel, or the extra production you're going to get, the extra acres you can farm, or the more bushels you can get out of something when you do it and you invest in it.
Well, I look at it this way. Let's just say that you're excited about something new. Like, for example, I want to use headline in furrow. I've seen some research on that and it shows a really good return on investment. Have the research data with you and show, all right, it's going to cost me $12 to put it in furrow, and I'm going to get on average back 5 bushels of corn that's worth, say, $4 a bushel. So I'm going to invest $12 and I'm going to get $20 back. And then figure out what the return on investment is going to be. Now, if you've got good solid data and you've got multiple repetitions of data and you can say, hey, this comes from a credible source. This came from South Dakota State University, or this came from Iowa State, or wherever it's coming from, and you can show your banker, hey, I've got good credible data here that shows me this could be a good management decision for my farm. Let's look at what the return on investment is going to be. I'm going to put that on in May. I'm going to get the money back in October. Wow, this is going to be fantastic.
And let's take it one step further. If you have data from your own farm showing some trials that you did this year that, hey, this headline or whatever it happens to be, this fungicide gives me a good return on investment, that's great. when you can show the banker, hey, this is right off my farm, this is what the return's going to be. Tile is another thing a lot of guys have talked to the banker about in recent years. They want extra money for tile on the farm. Well, show them some data, and especially if you show them data right off your own farm, that's awesome. Show them what you're getting for yield increase, times how many bushels you're getting, the price per bushel. What is your net return going to end up being? So what I always tell guys is don't just talk about the bushels you're going to return. Don't just talk about the net dollars you're going to return, but take it so far as return on investment. So in Darren's example of, let's say you have something that you're going to get $20 back on a $12 investment. Then you need to calculate my net gain there is $8 on the 12. So if you divide that out, return on investment, the $8 divided by 12 times 100, you're looking at roughly a 67% return on investment. That's great. But the other side of it is, how long did you invest the money? If you only had your money invested for 6 months, well, now you have to double that number. So now you're talking 134% net APR return on investment. That's really good. That's banker language.
Well, the other side of that equation, Brian, is when are you going to buy that headline? If you're talking to your banker right now and you say, I want to buy this, there's some good deals out there right around the first of the year at my local supplier. I can save a certain percentage over buying it in the spring. So let's make our decisions now. When we're making crop plans, it's important to make them early, because a lot of times, whether it's seed or fertilizer or ag chemicals or whatever the investment you want to make is, you're going to buy that product anyway. You need to buy the seed, you need to buy the crop protection products and so forth for that field. It's just a matter of, are you going to wait until spring until you just need it, or are you going to buy it early or pay for it early to get a good return on investment that way?
Now, when you go into the banker, you should typically have two goals. Number one, get the lowest rate possible. Number two, be able to borrow as much money as possible. So on our farm, for example, just a few years ago, we dramatically increased the amount of credit available that we had. Not that we were necessarily going to use it, but I just wanted the flexibility, so I had that capacity to do something else in season. So if I have a bug problem, if I have a disease problem, something comes up that wasn't expected, I'm prepared for it. So that's what I'm trying to say is prepare yourself now, try to get a higher line of credit, but then also really focus on that rate that you're paying. So if you look at what prime interest rate is, when you start talking, it's been 3.25% for several years now. If you're paying 8% at the bank, well, that's an awful lot that the bank is getting there. And what it comes down to, what the bank is always looking at, is their risk. So the better your balance sheet, and if you can borrow a fair amount of money from them, they say, boy, we're making quite a bit of money here, and we don't have a lot of risk. Your odds are you can get a lower rate if you're asking for that. And I don't want you to go out and switch banks and shop a whole bunch of banks around, because it comes down to relationship in a lot of cases. But at some point, you may possibly have to do that. And I guess I always like to try to be prepared for the future. So get that balance sheet in as good a shape as you always can, and then you're ready to go anywhere. Not that you'll ever have to, but you just always want to prepare yourself.
Well, let's sum this up, Brian. The first thing is you have to speak in the language of the banker. So you have to talk about investments that you're going to make on the farm and what kind of return on investment you have, and also what data you have to back that up that it's a good idea.
Yeah, in addition to that, we always encourage you, work on your balance sheet, have as good a balance sheet as possible. And when you go into the banker, you're going typically with two goals. It's to get the highest amount of credit available for you, not that you're necessarily going to use it, but you want it available. And then the other side is to try to get the lowest rate available, because in the end, you think about how many dollars you're going to borrow over many, many years. If you can get that interest rate even 1% cheaper, that's a lot of extra dollars in your back pocket.
Well, and certainly go in with confidence, because you know what you're doing on your farm, and you can show the banker by cleaning up our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
At Case IH, our equipment doesn't just meet the standards, it set them. With industry-leading SCR engine technology, Case IH gives you more power while still meeting tough emission standards. In fact, the Steiger 620 is the highest horsepower tractor to ever come off the assembly line. And all Case IH equipment is agronomically designed to help you maximize your yield potential and your profits. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready? Learn more at caseih.com/efficientpower.
For lower cost, higher production, see your Mandaco Agri-Dealer. Ask about the best production-built land roller on the market. Mandaco, simple design for easy transport to easy use. 12 to 85-foot widths, heavy-duty 4x8 3/8-inch tube frame, and now available with a steerable wing wheel. Mandaco land rollers, improved soil-to-seed contact, faster, more uniform germination, less moisture loss, eliminate downtime due to rocks. See your Mandaco Agri-Dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seed so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
Upgrade your trailer to electric with the Rolltech electric system from AgriCover. Strong, flexible pivot arms and motor mount rotate and telescope, allowing the roll tube to rise and flex over heaped loads. The positive automatic lock is impossible to back off to control the flow of grain. This integrated system uses one wireless remote to operate up to 10 tarps and hoppers, keeping your driver out of the dust, rain, and harm's way. See the Rolltech system in action at an AgriCover dealer near you.
If you watch Ag PhD TV, you'll love the new Ag PhD radio show each weekday on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80. This is Darren Hefty. On the new Ag PhD radio program, we'll take live callers and provide the agronomic information and brotherly banter you've come to expect from Ag PhD. We'll feature a Back 40 segment where we talk to farmers and agronomists around the country to share what's going on with crop production. And it wouldn't be Ag PhD without addressing a pest of the day. Tune in to the Ag PhD radio show each weekday at 2 p.m. Central on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80.
Our next topic today is building your soil. And Darren and I were just talking about this a little bit off camera. And he said, where do you want to go with this exactly? And the way I look at it in soils, we're talking about building organic matter, building overall fertility, and also something you may not have thought a lot about, and that's building the microbes that you have, just overall soil life from bacteria and fungi that are beneficial. And then let's take it a step further and go even to earthworms and things like that. So we want our soil alive. It's not just dirt.
That's a big topic, and we've only got just this little show, Brian, to try and get all this out. So let's start with the organic matter. That's one of the things that we're really focused on our farm is we want to build organic matter levels over time.
Let's first focus on why do you want your organic matter to be higher? Well, basically, the more organic matter you have, the more moisture your soil can hold. For every 1% of organic matter, your soil can hold about 4% more water. That's a big deal. The next thing is, for every 1% of organic matter that you have out there, your soil for free every year is going to release about 20 to 30 pounds of nitrogen, about 4 to 7 pounds of phosphate, and about 2 to 3 pounds of sulfur. In addition to that, there are a bunch of other benefits in soil having that organic matter, having a lot of organic matter. You're going to have a lot less compaction, you have more soil life, you're going to have more air, more movement of everything from roots to microbes to earthworms in the soil when you have a fair amount of organic matter there.
All right, so how do you build up organic matter? There's really a few things that I always focus on. One is going to be reducing the amount of tillage that you have. Now, you may say, hold on, I've got to manage my residues out there, and residue management is very important and critical to your success. What I'm concerned most about is the residue that's below ground. I want to keep my root mass intact if I can. So, for example, let's just say you're chopping silage and you're taking all the above ground residue off. If I was chopping silage on my farm, I would certainly go no-till with my corn because I want to leave those root balls intact because about half of the plant material of a corn plant is below ground. So you see all this plant material above ground, and it's easy to focus on that. But just think, whatever you're growing, chances are the root system is about half of the residue of that whole plant. So leaving that root system intact is really important.
Well, when you bring that up though, that just makes me think about soybeans. That's another thing that's big in our rotation. Well, they often say that soybeans have about 1/5 the root mass of corn, but it's just like you say, whatever you see above ground, there's going to be that much below ground. Well, think about looking at a soybean plant, now think about looking at a great big corn plant. Okay, it's no wonder why soybeans have a lot fewer roots. And we're not saying anything bad about soybeans here. It's just the point is, if we want to build our organic matter faster, you'd want to do it with plants that have more roots, like corn.
Well, and you certainly can build organic matter levels up in a soybean rotation. There's no question about that. It's been done. It's been proven. Guys that have done continuous soybeans for decades have seen organic matter levels go up as long as they're using no-till or seriously reduced tillage programs. It's just going to take a little bit of time. So if you want to do it quickly, point number 2 would be plant a high residue crop. So we're going to do less tillage, but then we're also going to look at high residue crops. So it may be something like corn, for example, that we're talking about.
But in addition to that, what we want to do is get some manure out there and use some biological products. We use Quick Roots on our farm, but just anything you can to help stimulate overall root growth, to help get more beneficial bacteria and fungi out there. And that leads us into, okay, we've talked about the organic matter thing. Let's talk about those soil microbes. How are we going to get more soil microbes, more earthworms in the soil? You know, it really kind of comes back to what you just said about organic matter. You want to reduce your tillage. You want to plant crops with lots of roots. You want to use some biological products. You want to use manure. So about all the same stuff we're doing to build organic matter, we're going to do that to build our microbes as well.
That's all good, but you also have to think about things on your soil test like soil pH. If you've got a pH that's way off the charts high or way off the charts low, you're going to have a hard time keeping anything living out in your soil.
I agree with that 100%, but the first thing I always think about there is drainage. If I have poor drainage, that means I have no oxygen or little oxygen in the soil, and when that happens, it kills a lot of my soil microbes, it kills plant roots, it doesn't allow organic material to break down and become organic matter. That's all bad news. So you've got to have good drainage in your soil if you want all this to occur. Our biggest concern for you is we want you to be really careful when you're building your soils that you don't have a whole bunch of erosion, because if you have a lot of phosphorus and potassium and other nutrients in that top inch of soil and that washes down the hill, where do you think your nutrients went? Number 1, you lost money because there go your nutrients. Number 2, it could cause pollution somewhere downstream. So just be real careful when you're doing these things. Try to keep that soil in your field. That's very important. And also be careful about where you're placing these nutrients, because if we can put phosphorus and potassium, these non-mobile nutrients, down a little bit in the soil, even 3, 4, 6, 8, 10 inches, that's awesome.
All right, that was a lot of information there. And I guess the big thing for you to think about when you're talking about building up your soils, we like building up organic matter in the soils. We like building up the soil life, everything that's living in your soil. If we can increase that and make a better environment for better survival, we get faster residue breakdown. We just get a healthier soil overall and better top-end yields.
Yeah, and then the other thing, if you're going to build fertility, be very conscious of the environment and where those nutrients are going, and especially be concerned about soil erosion. You've got to prevent soil erosion whenever you're building your soil.
Well, the other thing you have to do if you want your fields to be more productive is stop weeds like our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to control this weed coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
Your farm tells a story, one that continues with the decisions you make. Introducing the Enlist Weed Control System, an advanced herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate for exceptional control of tough weeds. The next chapter begins.
Our Weed of the Week is one of the first weeds Darren and I ever learned about on the farm. It is knotweed.
Well, we learned about it because we were pretty good at controlling it from a young age, Brian. I remember when Brian was going out to spray the yard, and we thought we'll just spray right around the house, control dandelions, this kind of thing. And Brian thought, out by the barn, there's this tough weed out there that's just all over and it's kind of choking the grass out. It was knotweed. And so Brian decided, I'm just gonna go smoke that too. So he mixed up a batch of 2,4-D in the backpack sprayer.
At my normal strong rate.
At a pretty strong rate. And
full labeled rate.
Killed everything but the little bit of grass that was around the barn. And Dad just went ballistic. What are you doing? You killed everything. It's just all brown around the barn. Brian's like, that's right, we're trying to get more grass to grow, but we had to stop the knotweed first.
So anyway, if you've got knotweed on your farm, you're probably not going to see it out in the field a whole lot because it stays low to the ground. It does get shaded out by the taller crops, corn, soybeans, and wheat. But around the farm place, especially if you're mowing your lawn too short, you may find a fair amount of knotweed. Just use the highest labeled rate of 2,4-D. That will do a nice job. Out in crop ground, Roundup is good. Otherwise, in wheat where you don't have the Roundup option, Husky would probably be my first choice.
And in corn, we like Status status in soybeans. If you do have some knotweed that creeps in the edge of a field, adding some Flex Star or Cobra to your post-emerge mix does a pretty nice job as well.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week Knotweed, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
What are farmers doing to feed the planet? They're using Quadtrek technology, soil management, and planting systems from Case IH to foster a better growing environment that maximizes yield potential. Visit caseih.com to be ready.
What's the most accurate way to lay drainage tile? Some say you should use a laser. Others say GPS works fine. I'll give you some pros and cons in today's Iron Talk. Using a laser to keep an accurate measure of depth has been done for a long time and it works pretty well. With rolling terrain, there are some challenges. You'll need to move the laser multiple times as you move through the field. The other big challenge we've run into is with wind. When the wind is really blowing, it can wiggle your laser, forcing you to stop for the day. GPS signals don't really care about the wind, and you save time as you don't have to move anything around as you're tiling a field. The real question about GPS is how accurate will that signal be when you're laying tile, especially if you have little if any slope to work with in some fields. The answer certainly depends on the quality of the GPS signal you're working with. When you hear about RTK being accurate within an inch, that refers to side-to-side accuracy on the soil surface. The vertical accuracy for depth control is commonly believed to be twice as far as the side-to-side accuracy. So if your signal gets you within 1 inch side-to-side, it may be as much as 2 inches away up and down. We've laid a lot of tile over the years using RTK GPS guidance. Our experience has been that the speed is far greater than laser, and the accuracy is very good. We lay mostly 4 and 6 inch tile, and have not had any flowability problems, nor have we suffered from insufficient drainage. There are advantages to using both laser and GPS when installing drain tile. The decision is up to you which way you go on your farm. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now, back to the show.
At Titan Machinery and Case IH, we offer better solutions for all your production needs. It's more than our job, it's who we are. We are parts. We are service. We are training. And most importantly, we are here for you. In any season, for every reason, we've got you covered. Case IH and Titan Machinery, better solutions.
You expect a lot from this seed, and as it grows through each stage of development, Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers is there, feeding your crop exactly what it needs when it needs it. So no matter how you fertilize, no matter when, AgroLiquid efficiently brings all the nutrients your crop needs for a great harvest. From 1 kernel in the ground to 600 on the ear. For better yields and better quality, Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers.
Capello corn headers are designed for producers who expect more. Expect more grain in your bin. Expect an industry-leading 2-year manufacturer's warranty. Expect Capello-designed chopping and folding options that save you time and money. And whether red, green, or yellow, expect row size options that fit your operation because all producers deserve the best. Expect Capello. It's a head above the rest.
Honey Wagon? Can the sweet talk. Out here we treat manure, and when we talk treats, we don't mean cupcakes. Treating manure with More Than Manure Nutrient Manager can reduce solids in your pit or lagoon and ammonia levels in confinement buildings. PU, try N and P. MTM is the first and only nutrient manager proven to reduce nitrogen loss and phosphorus lockup. That's fertilizer loaded with yield potential. Looking for proof? Check the bin. Isn't that sweet? Results you can't ignore. A pit you finally can.
If you watch Ag PhD TV, you'll love the new Ag PhD radio show each weekday on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80. This is Darren Hefty. On the new Ag PhD radio program, we'll take live callers and provide the agronomic information and brotherly banter you've come to expect from Ag PhD. We'll feature a Back 40 segment where we talk to farmers and agronomists around the country to share what's going on with crop production. And it wouldn't be Ag PhD without addressing a pest of the day. Tune in to the Ag PhD radio show each weekday at 2 p.m. Central on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
The all-new S-Cube commercial tender is the only tender on the market with poly tanks, giving you the capability to haul seed, fertilizer, water, or liquid fertilizer. Each cube can hold 300 units of seed, 2,000 gallons of liquid, or 300 cubic feet of fertilizer. Options include full functioning wireless remote, stainless steel conveyors, and self-contained hydraulics. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but be sure to join us again next time for another Weed of the Week, Iron Talk, Farm Basics, and a whole lot more. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
What's so sweet about manure? Animals eating prairie grass and returning nutrients to the soil through manure is the way nature is intended to work. To learn more about manure and how farmers use it to raise crops, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.